Hello and welcome to the Road to Worlds Continental Showdown. I'm your host, Daniel Madison. With me, as always, is my co-host, Greg Dillon.
Oh,
How's it going today?
it's alright.
So, this week we are talking about North American Continental Championships, which just went down this previous weekend. We had a guest scheduled, but he appears to be MIA for the moment. So we're gonna get started, and if he joins us later, and if he does, he does. If not, well, we'll keep going anyway. So North American Continentals took place up in Minneapolis. We had Jeremy Benedict on the show last week to talk about it, to get us hyped, preview the series of events. I'll just we're gonna get right into 1E and 2E, but I'll throw a quick shout out to Tribbles. We'll cover that first. Tribbles was on the last day of the event, and that ended up drawing 15 players. The winner was Nat Curtin, and the runner-up was Keith Rupp. So congratulations to both of them. Those will be those, like we discussed, those feed into the world's picture. Nat, if Nat is going to Worlds, and I think he might, he gets a 200,000 Tribbles head start into the Tribbles World Championship, and then Keith Rupp, as the runner-up, earns a 100,000 head start. So, congrats to both of them. So let's dive into First Edition, and First Edition also had 15 players. It's a pretty good turnout for that area. Like Jeremy was saying, that is locally they're a play group that has not played a lot of 1E, or has not played a lot in some time. Some of their players are starting to get back into it. But yeah, 15 is a pretty good turnout up there for First Edition. And this was I don't remember how many rounds. This was like a 4-round or a 5-round event. And
yeah, it was 4 rounds, and then
4 rounds.
The final 4 after that.
4 rounds that cut into a top 4, which was a single elimination, I believe. And the top 4 players that made it into Day 2 were Kevin Yeager, Chris Sonstaby, Michael Van Bremen, and Jason Tang. So they made Day 2, which was actually the same day. It was just later in the day. But they made the finals. And looks like Kevin was the top seed after the first set of rounds, first set of games. Kevin was running a Borg deck. Chris was running Romulan. Michael Van Bremen had Bajorans, and Jason Tang had Cardassians. Going into Day 2, I believe it was Kevin and Michael won their semifinal matches. I think Michael beat Chris and Kevin beat Jason.
Yeah, sure.
And then Kevin defeated Michael in the finals to win 1E Continentals. So first off, Kevin Yeager is on an incredible run this year, winning every regional that he's been to. He's won 2 1E regionals. He won 3 2E regionals. Took his earn to buy into 1E Continentals, won 1E Continentals. So he's on a crazy run right now.
Yeah, Kevin's playing really well, and in particular in 1E, which I believe he only just started playing again recently. sort of like Chris.
Yeah. Started playing recently, or made a comeback recently. I think that might be more accurate. Um, but yeah, piloting the board today. I haven't looked at the deck list yet.
It's similar to his regional. I think it's the second one he did with Borg, where battle interference just lock people out of missions and blow them up.
Yeah, it's they will be coming, I think. Uh,
Yep.
so yeah, Alpha Quadrant deck, and yeah, very much an interaction deck. Like I said, he had the earned buy, so he only had to play 3 rounds in the day one tournament. Looks like he beat a Ferengi deck. Then he beat Jason Tang running Cardassians, and then he beat Ken Tufts, who was running Federation deck. And then made it into day two. I'm looking at his reports now because his tournament reports are in the system for both days. And yeah, he got to play Jason again in day two, and then Michael Van Bremen in the finals. So I had to face Michael, had to face Ken. Very tough competition. Looks like a lot of speed solvers as his competition. Michael was running Bajoran, and Ken running a Fed deck. Very much quick solver style deck, so a little less interaction on their end.
Yeah, and Kevin came prepared for that as well. Like he played Earth, so if he came up against Federation, he could assimilate it and just lock them out of the game.
Yep.
He also played Insurrection for the people that wanted to do sonar and get that extra turn, so he could. Then there'd be multiple dilemmas under there, and he, I think in one of the tournament reports he mentions when he played Ken, they both see the mission, but Ken opted to not put any dilemmas under it. So Kevin knew exactly what dilemmas were there, and he went and assimilated it like third turn.
Nice. Yeah. Ken was running Insurrection. Looks like he had Enterprise East Sona deck going on. So yeah, that actually did come into play for that game. It's a pretty good strategy, and sometimes that pays. If you have a good idea what the meta is going to be, if you know what people are going to run, that's a good strategy, especially for the board where it's otherwise sort of irrelevant which missions get used, because it's your objectives that matter, and not necessarily the point boxes of the missions or the skills needed on the missions.
Yeah. And Chris, who also came second after the Swiss format, he was playing Romulan with a bit of interference as well, like with Romulan ambush and just blowing people up when they hit by Cytherians.
Yeah, Chris likes a fast deck, and he's very big on continuing mission style TNG decks because of how fast they can get people into play. But he's also very much an interaction player and often a battle player as well. However, Kevin did not end up playing Chris. Kind of got lucky on that. Chris.
It's similar to Australian Continentals, where with large fields, you'll often have like second and third place don't even play first place.
Yeah.
Who's like first place will knock people down a peg, and then second and third will scrape in just under everyone else has to play.
I'm sure if they had played a fifth round, that they would have been paired up. In fact, yeah, they're number 1 and 2, and there was no tie on victory points for Chris. So yeah, they definitely would have, if they had gone to a fifth round, they would have ended up having to play each other. But yeah, interestingly, they dodged that bullet. They both made it into top four. Uh, did not did not play in the second set in elimination, as Chris ended up playing Michael and lost to Michael instead. Whereas Kevin got paired with Jason, who was the fourth seed.
Yeah, and he'd already beat him once in the tournament. In his tournament report for day two, he mentioned that Jason tried to just outspeed him because he knew what Kevin was doing, but that didn't work.
I'm trying to read Chris's tournament report, but it doesn't really say a lot about the games. It's more of a summary. I was looking at trying to look at Chris's game against Michael, but says that Michael lost a big crew to Romulan ambush, so it probably was a pretty close game.
Yeah, but then he used Telecommand to just protect himself from the battle from there on, which is always a problem when you're doing Romulan battle, because Telecommand is so easy to splash into other decks.
Sure. Running Temporal Michael Wormhole, just about anybody can download him and put him into play, have a mix, and yeah, you got that. I mean, there's ways around it. If you run what is it, HQ defensive measures, I think you can still initiate battle.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, you can. Your touch GR can initiate battle against other Romulan. That's right.
So it's not a totally safe maneuver, but yeah, it certainly helps protect you, especially if you as the Romulan player are not expecting it.
Absolutely.
But
Interesting thing is though that Ken missed day two because of his modified win against Michael Van Riemann.
yeah, he was. That's true. He was down 1 victory point and ended up placing fifth on the day with basically the same record. But yeah, a modified win kept him just out. I think I saw it read somewhere that if he had the same number of victory points, that he would have won on tie breaks on
SOS,
looks
yeah.
like they went to strength of schedule, and he probably would have won on that.
It actually seems to go even unluckier than that because he played Kevin Yeager in the last round, which would have meant that Kevin actually got paired down against him.
Mm-hmm.
Ken would have been behind everyone else with a modified win.
Yeah, so tough break for Ken, but placing fifth, not too bad. I'm sure he would have liked to have made day two.
Yeah. Ken's a really smart player. He's the type where, like, if he loses to the deck once, he'll know how to play against it the second time and possibly beat it too.
That's true. I watched him. He played at Gen Con last year for North American Continentals. He did end up playing the same opponent his last round. The way they did it last year is, I think it was 6 rounds and then just a final confrontation. And his sixth round opponent ended up being the same as his finals opponent, and he actually lost the final round, and then or round 6. I mean, he lost round 6, and then in the finals he managed to win because he had a better idea of what his opponent's deck did and then knew how to beat it.
Yeah. With one in particular, because of the seeded dilemmas, it's always in elimination brackets when you play the same person again. The skill of being able to mix up your dilemma combos helps out a lot. Like just being able to figure out on the fly how you could change your dilemma combos and mess the opponent up.
Yeah, that is something you got to watch out for. If you play the same opponent twice, they've seen your combos, so you have to be able to mix it up a little, or they're gonna know how to walk through them. So yeah, that's tough to do on the fly. Although I guess in between in this case they probably had a break in between the Swiss rounds and the elimination rounds. They knew who they were going to have to face first. They knew who they were likely to face. They probably had a little bit of time to plan for that, figure out how to do things a little differently going into a second match with the same opponent. Like I said, Kevin did have to face Jason Tang twice on the day.
Yeah, that's true. Actually, that was actually the only one that I had to face twice because they had such a short Swiss format, 4 rounds. The only people that had to play twice was Kevin and Jason.
Yeah. Yeah, I was speaking in general, but that was the one instance in this tournament where it actually came into play. It's not like 2E where the dilemmas are somewhat random in that you have to shuffle and draw them, but 1E you have to actually plan that in advance. If you're going to play the same person again, then you have to plan differently.
Yeah.
So looks like a lot of insurrection played at the or actually no. Did Michael play Sona, or was he just running Bajorans?
No, he had Sona as well.
He did. So there were a couple of decks at or near the top tables that were running Insurrection and Sona. Looking at the tournament as a whole, I'm seeing actually a pretty good mix. Three Borg decks total out of the 15. See the Romulans in there twice. I see the Cardassians in there twice. Several Fed decks in various iterations. Couple Bajorans. No Klingons at all. That's kind of surprising. And one Ferengi.
Yeah,
no Delta Quadrant.
Has been relegated to block format.
Yeah, no Delta Quadrant. No Maquis. I wasn't expecting Maquis, but it certainly was possible, being the latest set. But
one Maquis deck wouldn't have been surprising, at least, like just someone trying it out.
Yeah. But yeah, pretty at least among Alpha Quadrant affiliations, a pretty good mix, making it to the tournament, and then 4 different affiliations making day 2. So that's a nice variety. So looking at the world's picture, this is going to earn Kevin Yeager a 2-round bye for Worlds if he decides to go next month at Gen Con in Indianapolis. And as the runner-up, Michael Van Bremen is going to earn a 1-round bye for Worlds. And I know he's going to show up.
Yeah, he'll definitely be there.
Yeah.
I'd like to see Kevin go too. I mean, I don't know if he can or not, but it'd be great to see Kevin go and play again against Ken and Michael and Stefan as well. I think he's going.
With the run he's having, I totally would love to see him there. And see if he continues it into Worlds, because right now he looks like the guy to beat.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it's just like Ken was for the last 2 years, I guess. Just if you want to win one, you got to be Ken. And now it's Kevin.
Yeah. I'm looking at Worlds Day 1, and Kevin is not pre-registered at this point, so it may be up in the air. He might not be going, or it may still be up in the air. But
Come on, Kevin, step up your game.
call him out. There you go. So that was 1E. We're gonna move on to second edition. Second edition had a lot more players. 22 showed up for 2E. They played 6 rounds, and then the top 8 went to a modified McIntyre format. And sorry, I'm closing some extraneous windows here. As I said, we were supposed to get the Continental Champion for 2E onto the show, and he seems to be MIA, but we're going to go ahead and talk about 2E anyway. So 22 players. They went to top 8. And first I'll talk about the mix of headquarters as a whole. Among what was played, a lot of TNG decks I'm seeing on the list. A lot of blue in general, TOS decks, DS9, one DS9 Earth in there. A lot of Romulan decks, which is not surprising. Romulans have been very strong lately at high-level events. Couple of Borg, couple of Dominion. No relativity. No relativity.
Yeah, that was surprising. That surprised me as well. I guess maybe they were afraid that relativity just couldn't win. They didn't want to come second.
Yeah, even people I expected to play relativity were not playing it. Like I expected Amber would bring relativity. But no relativity in 22 players. That was a bit of a surprise. But the top 8, Mike Harrington was the top seed at the end of day 1, and he was running a TOS deck. Then Neil Timmons was second with Romulan. Ken Tuff's Romulan. Barry Winchittle was playing Borg. Chris Sonstaby had TOS. Nat Curtin, Nate Weininger both played DS9, and then 8th was Steve Nelson playing Romulan. So those were the top 8 in order of how they seeded and in how they seeded in the first 6 rounds.
Yeah, and Michael Van Bremen 9th with Romulans as well.
Yes.
He had 2 modified wins and ended up 1 victory point behind 8th and 7th.
So again, like Ken with 1E, a situation where a modified win managed to keep a top player out of making the day 2. But yes, a lot of Romulans. So that's 4 Romulan decks in the top 10 basically. Since one just missed the top 8.
Actually, and there's only one other one that ended up much lower. So out of the 5 straight Romulan decks, 4 of them right up the top. That's
yeah. There were 5. The top affiliations were Romulan as far as how many made appearances were Romulan and TNG. Each had 5. There was a 6th deck that was dual HQ that had TNG as well. But Romulans had the much better showing with 4 decks out of the top 10.
Yeah, with the TNG, I know at least 2 of them were cadets, and it seemed that people were just prepared for Winnie decks. I know in Neil Timmons' deck report, he said he came prepared for dual HQ, relativity, other Romulans, and Winnies. So he knew how to beat the cadets pretty easy. I'm not sure exactly how many other people prepared for cadets or other weenies.
Yeah, and again, maybe it's a case of knowing your meta and knowing what people in your local area are going to bring. And it looks like not all of them, but a lot of Neil's opponents were local guys. So he probably did know. But then again, Neil himself is not local to that area, so I don't know. But yeah, maybe he's been paying attention, doing his research on what's being played up there.
Yeah, I mean that'd be smart. Like checking out the local area, obviously. Like I'm sure he's played a lot of the people as well in former Continentals and Worlds. And yeah, like you said, he was just prepared for the meta. Like he thought Romulans would be played, he was right. He thought Winnies would be played, he was right. But he said he was also prepared for a lot of dual HQ and relativity, which there was not a lot of. Like he didn't face either of the two dual HQ decks, and there was no relativity.
Right.
So he made meta calls, and a couple of his were right, and a couple were wrong.
Yep. Yep, and that's how it goes. Well, anyway, day 2. Looks like the finals ended up. It got down to Neil Timmons and Nate Weininger. Mike, like I said, Mike was the top seed, and Nate was the player that eliminated him in the semifinals. And Neil eliminated Chris Onstaby in that round. So it came to Nate versus Neil. Nate was running DS9 and Neil with his Romulans. And Neil Timmons was the winner. So congratulations to Neil on winning Continentals. If I remember right, I think he was the runner-up at Continentals last year at Gen Con. I think he lost in the finals to Chris Donati.
Yeah, that's correct. He was playing a similar deck, a Gargathon discard deck, and he lost to Chris playing Starfleet, pre-Nathan Samuel Serrata.
Right. Right. Starfleet was a very fast deck last season, and a lot of people were playing it at Gen Con. I do remember that. But the Romulans were doing quite well also, and I know several of them had made it into day 2. They have not received any major errata. Well, they did. They Power Shift got errated, right? I don't think it was a major one.
Yeah, Power Shift got errata just recently, like a week before the tournament, and it's just instead of the stat boost going out the turn, it's just the end of the mission attempt.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's not that big of a one. It does hurt Romulans steamrolling through missions. Like I remember when I'd play Romulans, often I'd get my second mission done with the Power Shift, and then be able to go to the third mission and attempt with like 8, and then do it with 3 people because I Power Shift earlier in the turn.
Yeah, I've played a couple of Romulan decks where they spend the entire game just building up and getting all the pieces in play, and just trying to draw it out and slow you down as long as they can. And then once they have everything out, they Power Shift a bunch of times, and they try to just go around and complete everything in one turn. I've seen decks like that, and so the Power Shift errata is going to hurt that strategy.
Yeah, but of course Neil wasn't even using Power Shift. He wasn't using the 5-point,
right.
the events that get you bonus points, so there was no need for it. Yeah, it's not that big. They've still got a lot of tools to complete missions themselves. So I think they'll be fine. Mainly that errata was to hit Covenant abuse.
Yeah.
Bad Michael Van Bremen.
And Michael Van Bremen. Michael Van Bremen, incidentally, was Neil's only loss in day 1. or the 6 rounds of Swiss. And interestingly, I think they said that there were 8 players out of the 22 that had earned buys. Neil was not one of them. Neil had to smash through from round one.
Yeah, Neil lost his regional to Brian Sykes, so he didn't have his bye. And
Right.
he played Henry Frid, Matthews Frid's son, in the first round, a
Yep.
cadet deck that he was prepared for.
Yep. And looks like he faced over the 6 rounds. He faced 2 TNG decks, 2 Romulan decks, one of which was Michael, which he lost to. And that was the modified loss or that that or helped keep Michael out of the top 8. Uh, but yeah, that was his only loss. And he faced Nat Curtin playing DS9 and Barry playing Borg in the final round. Um, and then in the day 2, he played Ken. No repeat opponents. He played Ken. He played Chris, and then he played Nate for the finals. Which
Yeah,
Romulan again, POS, and DS9.
reading through Neil's tournament reports, and there are a lot of tournament reports up for this for both
Mm-hmm.
days already from a lot of players.
Yeah,
Neil's a
Niels is
pretty
pretty
thorough.
extensive.
Neil's a thorough, and he's gone through and saying there are a couple games, I think 3 or 4, where he locked his opponent out by discarding a couple shifts and then unstuffing other ones at missions.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, but some of them were opponent's mistakes. Like against Nat Curtin, he said that in the first couple turns, Nat chose to discard ships when he had other cards in hand. And then that just cost him down the line when he had no ships left and they're unstaffed.
Mm.
And yeah, his loss to Michael Van Bremen, it seems, was just because Michael knew knew Romulan's strengths and weaknesses skill wise. So
Yep.
like Michael used his Tragic Turnpile to target archaeology, so Neil couldn't actually complete a couple of his missions because there's one skill that Romans aren't actually that good at. It. Like they got Patols, which is really handy. Like he's a great universal for archaeology, but other than that, they've only got like 2 useful people with archaeology, and I know Neil wasn't using Spock, who's one of them.
Yeah. Well, Michael's always a tough opponent, and especially they're playing similar decks or at least the same HQ. They they're gonna know he's gonna know how to beat you, especially if he's playing a similar type of deck. Um, but yeah, day 2 he had to start with Ken. Uh, looks like it was the Ken had the same Romulan deck that Michael Van Bremen was running. Very similar build, and went much better for him.
Yeah, it was a very similar build. And in the tournament board, it seems that Ken lost basically through a deck building mistake. He
Mm-hmm.
only had 4 ships in the whole deck, and 3 of them were Bird of Prey, and 1 was a Phoenix. So Neil just got him to download Birds of Prey with Keras and discard them until Ken couldn't actually do his missions.
So Ken was locked out as well. Um, Chris was running his TOS 8 legendary medical solver deck, which I've seen him play many times, and I've had a little success with myself. Um, but looks like the Romulan discard was just working well.
Yeah, and another one in the tournament where he ended up without any ships or staff ships anyway.
Mm-hmm.
But it was, according to both their tournament reports, it was a bit unlucky where Chris had 2 ships left in his last 3, or 1 ship left in his last 4 cards in his deck, and then Neil used sent back to make him draw 2, so then he could force them to discard those 2, and he ended up drawing his last ship that he had to discard, and then couldn't get any more points than I think he was on. He only needed 1 more mission too, so it was actually pretty close and a little unlucky for Chris.
Ouch. uh, and then finally playing Nate in the finals. Nate was running DS9. Actually, both players have a very extensive report of this match.
Yeah, this is the one where both players say that it's pretty much like Nathan's deck was the way to beat Neil. Like, if they had played round one in day one, Nathan would have won. Like, he would have beat Neil comfortably.
Mm-hmm.
But because it was the 10th round of the day, near midnight,
They were
fatigue
tired.
just cost. Yeah, fatigue just cost Nathan the match. Really, like he just made mistakes with dilemmas, with attempts where Neil was, I guess, more focused, more concentrated. But I mean, yeah, like it just shows like the Romulan deck. It's not unbeatable. You just it's a sort of a problem of people like A, not being prepared for tragic turn, which can hit
Mm-hmm.
you really hard if you're not ready for it. Where Nathan was with the South Polo, it's an excellent way to beat tragic.
Sure.
Uh, B, not knowing Romulans, their weaknesses, where Michael Van Breen beat him because he knows Romulans, he knows how to beat them. Where like because over the last years, Borg, Starfleet, Klingon have been dominant, everyone knows them. They don't know Romulans yet. And C, just luck, I guess. There's according to Neil Timmons' tournament reports, there were quite a few games where he got pretty lucky to get rid of like ships or not not get stopped by dilemmas and then end up winning the game.
Yeah. Sometimes luck can be a factor. But yeah, fatigue definitely a factor as well. And 10 rounds of 2E in one day is an awful lot.
Yeah, I'm actually. It's interesting that Mike Carrington didn't get to play Neil at all through the 10 rounds. Mike's deck's sort of like Chris's. It's one that could probably beat Neil, but he didn't get a chance because Nathan beat him in the semis.
Yep. Yeah, Mike was also playing a TOS deck. I haven't looked at that deck list. I don't know what's in that one compared to Chris. But
Yeah, it's pretty similar. It's like a tight. It's a two-mission win deck actually, where he
yeah,
uses obviously the Enterprise B for bonus points and does dice. It's sort of like Michael Van Bremen's deck way back at the start of regionals that won his regional, where he does Dice and Sphere with lots of cards in discard pile, gets points from that, and then deliver Ancient Artifact for 50 points as well.
right. Yeah, I'm looking at it now. It does look familiar. um, so yeah, altogether top 8. 3 Romulan decks made top 8. 2 TOS, 2 DS9, and 1 Borg deck. Not quite so much variety in this field as with first edition. I know a lot of people have been talking in the forums now about is Romulan overpowered, and I don't know that that's true. I think maybe this is just their year.
Yeah, I mean, the question's been raised because they won North American Continentals last year and they won Worlds last year with Stefan.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, like as was shown in Neil's tournament report, like he got beaten by Michael. He should have lost to Nate Weiniger in the final. Chris got a bit unlucky to not go a lot closer to winning. Neil's deck, like Robin's, are definitely beatable. You just got to be prepared for, I think, in particular, tragic turn is the
Yeah.
big thing. And then also
And
knowing that
and tragic turn, especially with Return to Grace, there are a lot of meta answers to tragic turn now.
Oh yeah, exactly. You got self-replicating roadblock would be great against tragic turn.
Mm-hmm.
And then you got all the kill preventions, like if you like DS9's got the South Polo, which is perfect. You got
Yep.
escape. Player says contamination really hurts it because that's a free dilemma overcome pretty much every time you attempt.
Hmm.
Of course, like yeah, just kill prevention. Oh, damage Starfleet I think would be really good against it. Like they've got the mobile HQ, so they can't actually get unstaffed. And they've also got Fox, which is really good at preventing. Not to mention Archer, you can't get random selected by stuff
Being
like
able to exclude them, sure.
guillotine or ACE actually even can't randomly select you, so it does nothing.
Yeah. Yeah, but yeah, that's matchups, and damaged Starfleet might be good against Romulans, but might not necessarily be good against the field.
Exactly, like you got to be able to beat the TOS decks that were in there as well that are very fast.
Hmm. And that's why I think like it's just the Romulans are it's just their time right now, and people will cycle through decks, they'll find a way to beat the Romulans, and then that'll be on top for a while, and then something else will, the meta will shift to take on that, and that's my theory
Yeah,
anyway.
at the very least, like last year, the Rhino is like a forced meta shift. Like it forced the Borg out. I mean, there was a Borg in the top 8 still, but
Sure.
they're not unbeatable. Like they're not the massive force they were. And of
Hmm.
course, the Starfleet as well that were winning despite the Borg are definitely slower now. They've still got a lot of their strengths. They're just not as fast as they were.
Right. Right. Samuels is still interesting, and there's advantages to running it, but it's that's certainly not the deck it used to be.
Yeah, yeah. The problem with Samuels now is that like even before Starfleet didn't it wasn't guaranteed to get him out quick, but now you have to. Like if you don't get him out in the first or second turn, he's not going to be worth it because he has to be out
Because
for
he's
at
too
least three
slow.
turns. Yeah, he
Yeah.
has to be out for at least 3 turns just to gain you one counter.
Right.
So
Yeah. Yeah. So you'd have to get him out early. I mean, the fact that he doesn't have to stay at Earth anymore is kind of nice.
yeah, and you don't have to use the 40-point missions. That does help.
Hmm.
But whereas before it could be like you play him on the fourth turn, and that turn you get 2 cheap aliens already,
Yeah.
and then the next turn you get another 4 or 5. So now it's just one a turn. It's definitely slower.
Yeah.
He actually doesn't have bad skills either. I think, like I was saying, SS Contamination's a really good mission. He's got lore for that.
Yep.
The problem is it's not a Delphic mission. Although you can make it one with an event, I guess.
That's true.
Now I
uh,
want to play Starfleet.
well, there you go. This trick idea for your next big event if you're expecting Romulus. um, is there anything aside from relativity, which we already talked about? Is there anything that you were surprised didn't make a showing here or didn't place as high as you expected?
Klingons. Kevin played Klingon Romulan deck that he won a regional with early in the season,
Hmm.
but there were no stray Klingons. I was surprised that, especially in Minnesota, where I know they like their speed decks, that there was no Riker Sword deck. Um, eh, I think it's a really good deck. Like I think it's better than Cadets. It's as fast, but it's not weak to all the stuff that Cadets are weak to. So
Yeah,
I was very
that
surprised
is
Klingons weren't played.
surprising. Klingons very scarce in both editions for this Continentals.
Yeah.
No,
There
give
was
those guys a comeback.
there was 2 Dominion decks. There's no deck list for them, but so I don't know if they're commodities or not. But I'm surprised that Dominion didn't actually do better. I think they're really good at solving. Um, I guess the players at the top just decided to play something else, which is fine. I don't think they're that great, but I thought Dominion would have done better.
I've seen Dominion, not always. It depends on the deck. Some Dominion decks are a little shaky, but I've seen Dominion decks that can do very well. Are you surprised there's no con decks?
I'm not surprised. I actually haven't played a Khan deck. I know Dan Hammond won a regional with a Khan deck, but I'm not surprised that no one played it. Especially in a big tournament. I mean, if you come and you might win a couple of games, but because people are prepared in big tournaments for other stuff, you can shut Khan decks out. Like especially the discard. Like if Neil played a Khan deck, he gets you to download Joaquin and then discards him, and then you can never do a second mission.
Yeah, it's like Relativity. It's a deck that has the potential to be very fragile.
Yeah, especially if you know the weaknesses. And I mean,
Mm-hmm.
I guess a lot of people haven't played Khan, so they might not know the weaknesses, but I'm gonna say glaringly, they're glaringly obvious. I
Yeah,
mean, there's only one way they can get a ship out unless you play the HQ, which I think is the way to go. Play if you want to play Khan. I think in a big tournament you've got to play it with D6 9.
yeah. If you're gonna play to for a major or something like this, and you want it to have a chance of working, uh, don't go for the achievement.
No, you got to play D6 9. It gives you a place to report your ship, so you have to rely on Joaquin, and it also gives you bustling with activity, which is just great.
Sure.
Downloading exactly what skills you need, downloading Khan, downloading Marla Gilmore, downloading Navarre if you want to make her genetically enhanced for skill gaining. Yeah, bustling's great.
Yeah, sounds like a good idea. And Navarre also is a good. Even Navarre seems to be the card to pick if you're not running a headquarters for the personnel to put your augmentation on because of her skill gaining
Yeah,
ability. Because that's somewhere if you happen to be running all genetically enhanced, then that's one of the problems is getting is sometimes the skill mix is not going to be ideal. Just because of the
yeah,
limited card pool. Just like with Relativity, that's why they have to get help by recruiting with temporal transporters, and they can't keep people in play with all the skills they need because their own card pool is so limited that they're a little skill light. They're heavy in some areas, but almost non-existent in others.
yeah, exactly. Like Relativity is weak against the ACOS space ones, Tchaikovsky,
Mm-hmm.
because they don't have a lot of medical or biology or exobiology.
Right.
Obviously, Bashir helped with that if you want to play with him. Um, they're also really bad at Gom2 as well. They have very few diplomacy and easy to pick out. I mean, Kirk helps with that because he has diplomacy and he can get rid of it. But if you pay attention, you can definitely hit Relativity to Gom2 early, almost every single game.
Yeah. Uh, all right. Well, let me once again look quickly at the world's title picture, and of course we'll get into this a little more when we actually do our world shows. But with Neil Timmons winning 2E Continentals, he has a 2-round bye for 2E Worlds, and I'm pretty sure he's going. That's going to be a big deal. Okay, actually, I'm not sure that he's going, but
I don't know if he's going. He didn't mention it in his tournament report. Nate Weiniger said that he's like a 10% chance of going now that he's got a bye. I'm not sure about Neil though. Again, it'd be really good for him to go. He'd be obviously a definite contender
Neil is
for
pre-registered.
Worlds. That's great. What would be
Neil is
interesting is if
pre-registered for Worlds, and wow, with his win, he's now second ranked overall 2E player. I think that's just behind Chris Clark, if I'm remembering right. Uh, on the lifetime ratings.
Right. Yeah. He's been second before, I think. So he just took back second place from Stefan after Worlds last year.
Yep, Stefan is number 3, Mike Harrington number 5. All three of them are pre-registered. 6 of the top 10 pre-registered for Worlds. Going to be a very tough event, but Neil has a 2-round bye, which is going to be a huge advantage. Like you said, Nate Weininger, if he decides to go, he does have the 1-round bye for being the runner-up.
Yeah, and I think that's going to be extremely interesting too, with the out-of-towners coming in like Stefan and the Englishman. Sorry, and obviously more people going like yourself. I know there's at least a few people that had to pick between North American Continentals and Worlds, so there should be a lot more people at Worlds.
Yeah, I think if that's the thing, if you're picking between one or the other, then Worlds is going to be the place to be if you can afford it. It's going to be huge. I mean, for one thing, I'm really looking forward to with Worlds being here at Gen Con. Sort of our premier venue for running big Star Trek events. When Worlds is not in America, we run North American Continentals there. Obviously, Gen Con being a major gaming convention that it's a great showcase for us. We get to play not only with a lot of players, but also a lot of people going by and seeing what we're doing, and it's a way to get other people interested. Also, this year with Worlds being, or with this being the 20th anniversary of the Star Trek CCG, I'm looking forward to seeing what we do to kind of commemorate that event. And I think there's some plans in the works for that. I'm really excited to see what happens.
Yeah, Worlds looks like it'll be really good.
I hope so. Well, I think we've about summed up all of the North American Continentals action. Like I said, unfortunately, we did not get Neil on the show. Neil, if you are listening, if you'd like to come on another time, you're certainly welcome to. So get back in touch with me. Let me know. In the meantime, we've got, for everyone else, we do these at Wednesday nights at 11:30 Eastern. We do have a couple of shows left of the Continental Showdown, as European Continentals is coming up. Not this weekend, but next weekend. So next week will be our European Continentals preview show. And we have Nick Yankovic is scheduled to be on the show with us to help preview the event. I believe he's TDing as well. I think he's organizing European Continentals. Nick, of course, is also the 2E brand manager.
2E brand manager and con enthusiast.
Con enthusiast, yes. Nick of Team London. I met him at Gen Con last year. He's a really nice guy. So looking forward to talking with him about European Continentals. For those of you that like to watch us live, the show will be delayed by 1 hour. So it's actually going to be that Thursday morning at 12:30 a.m. Eastern. So if you're watching us live, I'm sorry. But we're accommodating for Nick because it's really early morning for him over in England. So he asked us for 1 hour, so we gave it to him. So that's when we're going to be recording. But you can always, if that is too late for you, you can always watch the recap here on YouTube afterward. So that's what we got lined up next week. Looking forward to that show, and until then, for Greg Dillon, this is Daniel Madison, ending transmission.